Hi everyone, Bibbs here. Today I'm checking out the Neural DSP Archetype Misha X plugin. They've not done an archetype in some time, and I don't think a plugin for a little while whilst they've been concentrating on the other things. I've got a little riff, a little track I put together for the intro that you will have heard, and I'm going to take you through some of the sounds I was using on that, rather than show you everything in the plugin, just show you the specific sounds that I've got from it that I enjoy. First, a quick little plug. Over on my Patreon, you can grab the tabs for that intro jam and a couple of bonus lessons of how to play some of the riffs and the licks and things. I'll also link all of the sounds I'm using as the presets down in the description below. As always with the archetypes, you've got the left to right signal flow here, where you have certain effects, pre-effects, the amplifier, the cab and EQ, and the post effects, time-based effects. And things are very, very familiar. In fact, so familiar that the amps cover a lot of the same ground again. We get like 5150 type things, very, very pristine cleans, and a Marshall-y juiced Marshall. But what we've got that's really new and quite cool and interesting are these special effects up top here. So laser pedal, this glitch pedal, and then we have a whole bunch of the pre-effects. These are all standard stuff, so a tape echo up front, a dual octaver, a compressor, again, all familiar things you'll have seen in other neural products. But we do have the specific modeled precision drive and the precision drive and the compressor from Horizon Devices, Misha's company. And then we have this chaos pedal as well, which I'm using on one of the sounds and the presets, which is sort of like a distortion / octave kind of thing. It's not really clear what it's supposed to be. It talks about it being a custom design thing for Misha. Then got the amp models that we talked about here. So like I mentioned before, the pristine clean, the chunky 5150 type, and then a sort of hot-rodded kind of Fried Mini Marshall thing. Again, super familiar ground. Familiar cab blocks. So we've got all the usual suspects for microphones, same setup as all the other plugins. The EQ, switch in and out, and then the post effects. So nothing to note here other than this new modulator pedal. So it's kind of like a chorusy effects, modulation things, or flanger. Yeah, I've not used that in this track, but I might explore it a little bit later. Then we've got the stereo delay and the reverb. Again, really nice, but nothing super exciting to write home about. Where I'm going to spend most time is just in the amp settings that I'm using, and then in the special effects part. So on the track itself, I've been trying to sort of finish this riff idea for ages. Weirdly, it was this particular plugin that inspired me to do so. Again, more so because of these special sort of effects, just to give the atmospheric stuff as opposed to the actual core tone. But I will start with the core tone. So the basic riff I've got here, so this is track's called Disengage, so and it's rhythm 2 I think I'm using actually on the final render. So we're on the middle amp, which is linked here with the middle cab. This is the 5150-esque, familiar ground as I've talked about. Here are the settings, so it's in the top voice. Everything's pretty much at noon here, just past noon. Master's down a little bit lower and the output's a little higher, and it gives a real nice chunky hard rock kind of tone. I think that's quite cool. It works well in the mix. It's kind of crunchy and grindy. It's got a lot of nice bite to it. Still lots of body, but nothing that I couldn't have achieved with any of the other 5150s inside of all the various archetypes. So I have kind of dialed up something very similar in the Pliny and the Nolly, the Gojira, very, very similar sounds. And I think that's one of the things with the archetype plugins is that, I'm sure everybody knows this going in, but you're getting very similar things to what you've already bought. So if you've bought Gojira, if you've bought Nolly, if you've bought, you're getting very, very similar core tones. The thing that you're really paying for of interest is the periphery, the stuff on the peripheral, the post effects or special effects, those are the novelty things where you're actually getting added a new value with things. Let's dig into the cab settings that I'm using on this here. So good old faithfuls, usual suspects, 57 and 121. The positions here are a little bit like close to the center than I perhaps would normally use. I wanted, because this is more of a harder rock kind of tune than I would usually do, I wanted to have a little bit more bite, a little bit more aggression, so the positions are further in. I would also usually use a 160 as my ribbon mic of choice, but the 121 just gives a little bit more grunt and low end. Moving along to the EQ here, this was, I think, the default EQ settings. I may have pulled 16 kilohertz down, I can't remember. I may have put the low shelf up here to 70. a few tweaks to this, to the general quality of life features here. We've got these like padlocks, so you can lock these main global settings whilst changing presets, which is quite cool. And whilst talking about presets, there's a new way to browse and scroll through presets, little browser here, which will be very familiar to you guys with the Quad Cortex, because it looks very familiar to Cortex Control. But that's kind of cool way of now interacting with the presets within a plugin. I think, hopefully that comes across to all of them, but I think right now it's just with this new Misha one. Everything else is kind of the same, so you get the doubler, transpose, output, input mode. I've got the gate on here on this preset here, but it's right down low. It's just to kind of tidy things up a little bit. Hear that noise? Who's calling me? Go away. So I'll just switch guitars and talk about those other sounds. Okay, so we're on to Big Blue, my main Fibonacci Roadmaster Strat. And weirdly, I chose to use this for the solo. It's as I get older and older, I just become more and more a lover of single coils, and I find that even for high gain kind of things, or more gain than I would perhaps potentially normally use, it just sounds, things cut nice on single coil pickups in a way that humbuckers don't really do for me at the moment. So yeah, I play the solo on this guitar, and if I just load up the patch, the preset, I think I'm using solo 2. I'll put all the presets and the final one that I'm using into the links down below. So this is the solo, and what I'm doing here, there's no special effects, but the pre-effects here, now I have the compressor on. This is the Horizon Devices compressor that's modeled. And then I think what I've got is I'm going to turn on and sort of automate this chaos pedal. So if I turn on this to show you what it does, it gets very noisy. So it kind of sounds a bit distorted, a bit fuzzy, a bit, maybe there's some octave in there as well. It's kind of cool. Don't really know what it's doing, but it is fun, and I thought it worked really well for adding this little bit of a, bringing out these tapped harmonics that I'm doing on this lead part. Yeah, which is really kind of hard to do, because again, I'll talk about it in the lesson videos, but I'm bending here up and getting a harmonic over the pickup. That just nicely helps more reliably grab the that sort of octave overtone of that tapped harmonic. Okay, so onto the amp here. Now I'm still using the middle amp and cab. This is the 5150, but I've just changed things tonally a little bit. Still on voice 1, the gain's bumped up. I'm over halfway here. The bass and treble are the same. Presence has been pulled down, and then I just cranked the mids a little bit. Master is about the same, and output's about the same. So nothing too drastically different. I'm basically boosting the mids and a little bit more gain. I'm kind of pulling back the position of the mics a little bit more, and I have changed to a more mid-throaty ribbon 160. The room sends are on around -13, 14, giving me that really kind of nice bite without being too overly take your head off. Post effects here now, so you can see the delay settings and the reverb settings. This is the special effects things going on, and this was really inspiring, and what this made me decide to finally just kind of like finish off this little idea, intro idea. So the main riff something like that. There's a few variations, but that's basically what it is. It's kind of busy, it's got a lot going on, it's chuggy, low. So I wanted something to counter that and to contrast it. And I didn't want it to be busy at all, it's just long held notes. And I'm leaning heavily here then on these two pedals, this laser pedal as it's called, and the glitch pedal. Now the laser is like a sort of a whammy, or it does a few different things. There's no real settings as such, it's basically all built around presets. And as you can see, if I turn, in fact, I'll go to the actual patch that I'm using here. So I'm calling this Chaos Lead. And yeah, so you can see I'm using the pitch super wham preset here. And then I've connected it up to an expression pedal. You can see, and then the tone that I'm getting from this is combined with the glitch delay. Now the glitch delay is something that seems eerily familiar to some of the line 6 type of delays and echoes and special effects things. But nonetheless, regardless of where it's come from or been inspired by, it's very, very cool. It has a whole bunch of different settings that are not really self-explanatory. And I think really the key to this is just about experimenting, and it's just trial and error. There's nothing so bad as it's going to, well, I suppose you could create a lot of bad sounds, but you can't really break it as such. I don't really know what loop, length, sequence, pitch delay, interfere, occurrence, chaos, I don't really know what these mean. And when you go into the settings, it doesn't really explain it either. So, where are we? So yeah, it has a manual as such, but the key word here is this pedal leverages granular processing. I'm not really sure what that is, to create unpredictable, and there's the key word, unpredictable glitch, stutter, and texturizer effects. That's what it's all about. It's about creating ambience, rhythmic chaos, as it's saying, and I think you just faff around with it until you find something that you like. Yes, there are definitions of what these things do, but actually like contextually wrapping your head around that, like if I change the length here and change the loop length here, and the grain length, how does that interact? Well, you're just going to have to mess around and see. What I did, I set it to the longest length here. I've got 4 bars. It's on texturizer, left kind of probably the default settings, and then I get this sound. And that really is everything I wanted to show you for the sounds on that little intro track, and what is kind of cool about the plugin really, which predominantly is these special effects. What we get in here with the Misha X archetype is a lot of familiar ground when it comes to amp tones in terms of the core amp sounds that are being delivered, but the real novelty cool things are these special pre-effects, the I'm told, very accurate compressor and precision drive horizon devices, co-branded with Misha, this new Chaos pedal. One other thing I'd forgot to mention, you can attach the actual pedal movement to an envelope filter and sensitivity of your input. Basically what you do is you turn on the envelope, and then it's going to take this preset, this laser preset, but assign it to the input of what I'm playing. And that's where we get the laser, the Pew-Pew thing. So you can set it, and you've got to have a speed and the sensitivity control. It's kind of silly. Oh, I didn't do the bottom, did I? So the usual tuner, the MIDI settings, tap tempo, the metronome, you know. If you've used a neural DSP plugin before, you know the score by now. But it is cool, they're starting to move things in a slightly more user-friendly direction with quality of life improvements. We've got these padlocks to lock the top controls when you cycle through presets. You've got this new preset browser. I think the real step forward though, the thing that I would really like to see, that's totally antithetical to the business model, I know, but is like some kind of hub where you can load and mix and match the plugins. I think if you had that ability, it would be very, very stark, the overlapping sort of core tones that you're getting in terms of the devices that are being, or not the devices that are being modeled necessarily, because that's opaque, but the actual end result of the sounds you get from the various plugins can be very, very similar. So you can dial up very, very similar tones to Gojira and potentially to Pliny and Nolly as well with some of these things. And that actually is apparent when you load the plugins and you do presets back to back on the Quad Cortex. But obviously you've got to have a Quad Cortex to do that and see that. What would be really nice, I think, is if you had like there was like a neural DSP archetype master hub that you could load and mix and match things in with. So thanks for watching, guys, and I really appreciate you sticking with me as I'm going through a little bit of a tough time. Battery on the camera just died. Anyways, as I was saying, thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for watching. Links to everything is down in the description below. The sounds, the presets, the bonus lessons, and the tabs over on Patreon, and obviously to check out the plugin itself. And until next time, cheers, guys. Bye.